Saudi Arabia, the United Arab Emirates. Their once closely coordinated relationship is now fraying as a cascade of disagreements has emerged between them, especially over the past few months. As external factors such as the 2011 uprisings brought Saudi Arabia and the UAE together, changes in regional and global geopolitics are now putting their interests at odds, periodically turning them against each other.
الحادث اللي حدث مؤلم جدا لجميع السعوديين.
The Saudi-Emirati relationship went into overdrive amidst the 2011 protests that rocked political establishments across the Arab world. Their closer alliance was a serious attempt to build up a unified front against any revolutionary movement in the region. To some extent, it was this fear of revolution and those who fanned its flames that finally resulted in the blockade of Qatar in 2017. Spearheaded by Riyadh and Abu Dhabi, the blockade meant to dissuade Doha from supporting the Muslim Brotherhood, a movement considered by many as the main force behind what they call the Arab Spring. The rapid rise of young Mohammed bin Salman in Saudi Arabia and his close friendship with the ambitious Crown Prince of the UAE made the two countries take a more adventurous, aggressive path in the region.
We have to know that the relationship between Saudi Arabia, represented by MBS, Prince Mohammed bin Salman, and Emirate, represented by MBZ or MBZ, Mohammed bin Zayed, those countries' relationship are based on the friendship of their respective rulers. And now, after like a honeymoon, long honeymoon, this honeymoon is coming to an end.
The immediate result was a bloody campaign against the poorest country in the region, under the excuse of reinstating the fugitive president of Yemen. All these factors, along with the enmity with Iran, kept the two Arab powers close to each other for about 10 years. But now the so-called Arab Spring has largely passed, and revolutionary sentiment appears mostly on the margins of the internet than in street protest. As anti-state challenges began to fade, a split of opinions began to appear on how to deal with pro-revolutionary groups like the Muslim Brotherhood and, by extension, Qatar. In January 2021, Riyadh announced the end of the blockade on Qatar, a move Abu Dhabi didn't welcome warmly. The Emiratis have yet to restore a full-time ambassador to Doha. In Yemen, strategic realities have also begun to set in. At first, the Emiratis and the Saudis were equally committed to fighting with the Ansarullah movement, but as the war went on, Abu Dhabi decided that the war was more a Saudi problem and therefore became less willing to expend the troops and treasure on the campaign. The decision consequently led to a certain amount of bad blood between the two sides. Things could turn for the worse in Yemen, especially as the UAE-backed Southern Transitional Council continues to seek secession from Yemen, which Saudi Arabia wants to keep unified. Meanwhile, the two countries' attempts to diversify their oil-dependent economies have triggered a kind of economic friction. In tourism, Saudi Arabia hopes to copy Dubai's luxury lure and, if possible, overtake it. With similar climates and attractions, Saudi Arabia and the UAE have found themselves in a fierce rivalry in attracting tourists. Mega projects such as Jeddah Tower and the futuristic town of Neom have been designed to lure businesses and workers away from the glitzy malls of Dubai. Saudi Arabia is also pursuing new transport and infrastructure projects, threatening well-established Emirati companies. Its new national airline, for instance, is striving to muscle out Dubai's Emirates airline market share. The Saudis are also growing ports along the Red Sea and the Persian Gulf, hoping to unseat Jebel Ali on the southern outskirts of Dubai, which acts as the logistical linchpin between Asia and Europe.
It's not new, but publicly now it's in the open. But before, no, it wasn't. It's not new. It's like started by differences like since the war in Yemen, and who is in the lead, who wants to be in the lead. And secondly, when sanction opposed on Qatar also, or the relations between Jebel Ali especially, or Emirat, and trading with Iran. There were like so many differences between Emirat and Saudi Arabia, but now it comes to an open publicly.
In February 2021, Saudi Arabia warned it would terminate state contracts with businesses that didn't have their regional headquarters in the kingdom, a desperate act to force them to move from the UAE.
This will weaken the Emirates' economy, and especially when Saudi Arabia asked the big international companies to come back from Emirates. And because Saudi Arabia is much wider and bigger, let's say, merchant for investors to invest. So this will, economic-wise, will bother Emirate a lot.
A few months later, in July 2021, Riyadh imposed tariffs on goods produced in free zones or with Israeli involvement, policy decisions that directly affect the free zone-heavy, Israel-friendly United Arab Emirates. A more overt attempt by Riyadh to limit the Emirates' gains from normalization with Israel. On the other hand, at OPEC, the Emiratis have been more willing to break with the Saudis to gain the production level they want, a sign of growing rift between the two sides.
Saudi Arabia is saying that by extending the oil production, the oil price will go down. And we need it to be stable. And that's why you have OPEC Plus, like the 22 countries is like with Saudi Arabia in this manner. But Emirate has another point of view. They said, okay, we lost so much like money, and our economy is a little bit tight, so we need to extend our oil production, like increase our portion of oil production daily. But that will make the oil price, as according to Saudi opinion, will make the oil price go down again. This is the main problem, main issue. So it's also economic-wise, and it is related, especially when UAE is very related economy to the oil production. It's like more than 30% of its economy depends on oil production.
As the UAE-Saudi axis deteriorates, so has the hard line against Iran. Bin Salman's language in Iran has softened dramatically since his rise as the Saudi crown prince. Likewise, the UAE has been busy patching up with Iran. All in all, the growing divergence of interests between Riyadh and Abu Dhabi has created serious cracks in the thin layer of their strategic entente, as it used to be hailed. Although the two sides might continue to agree on some major strategic matters, Riyadh and Abu Dhabi are expected to chart different courses in the coming decade. In fact, overlapping economic competition and strategic differences have already marked an end to a decade of unprecedented alliance.
لجميع السعوديين.